Welcome to Jewish World Weekly on I-24 News. I'm Emily Francis. Every week we focus on stories, issues, and personalities of Jewish interest, both here in Israel and throughout the diaspora, the global Jewish community. And as always, we start with our top 5 items in the Jewish world, presented by Sarah Rogers. Hello, Sarah.
Thanks, Emily. Here are the top 5 items in the Jewish world this week. Starting in Turkey, where David Sevi has been officially installed as the new chief rabbi of the Jewish community. 70-year-old Sevi previously served as acting chief rabbi following the passing of his predecessor, Ishak Aleva. Chosen unanimously in an internal community election, he becomes the 4th Chacham Bashi since the founding of the Turkish Republic and the 34th since Ottoman times. Shifting to Iran, authorities recently summoned the country's only Jewish member of parliament, Homayoun Sameya Najafabadi, after some Iranian Jews posted or engaged with pro-Israel content online. In his response, Najafabadi urged the community to remove such material and avoid following media outlets deemed unfriendly to the regime, a sharp reminder of the growing pressures on Iran's Jewish minority. In Germany now, Stefan Hensel, the only Jewish antisemitism commissioner in any German state, has announced he will resign at the end of the year. Hensel cites a surge in threats, harassment, and a lack of political support, describing a massive wave of hatred since October 7, 2023. Personal threats have forced him to rely on security and limit his public appearances, while he criticized local institutions for failing to effectively address anti-Semitic incidents, exposing the gap between official policies and real-world action. Turning to the arts, the world mourns the passing of legendary architect Frank Gehry, who died at 96. Gehry became a global icon in architecture, celebrated for his bold sculptural designs, including the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao and the Walt Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles. Over decades, he transformed the field by blending art and engineering, earning top honors like the Pritzker Prize and leaving behind a legacy of iconic buildings worldwide. And finally, a piece of Jewish history is about to be auctioned. A rare 14th century handwritten Hebrew Bible from Toledo, Spain, will be offered for bidding at Sotheby's in New York later this month, as part of its important Judaica sale. This manuscript, featuring the full Tanakh and micrographic Masoretic notes, is valued at between $1.5 and $2.5 million. Those are the top 5 items in the Jewish world this week. Back to you, Emily.
He's an Oscar-winning filmmaker from Los Angeles who has left Hollywood behind for a new life here in Israel. Known for documentaries like the Academy Award-winning The Long Way Home and many others, please welcome Richard Trank to the studio. Baruch haba.
Thank you, Emily.
It's so good to see you here on this side of the world. First of all, I mean, with such a flourishing career, nearly 20 films, I know it wasn't just some spontaneous decision to move here. It was a long time coming. Why?
Well, it's something that I had been thinking about really very intensely the last 10 years. And part of it was when I was doing one of my more recent films, Never Stop Dreaming, which was about the life of Shimon Peres. Spent the last year of Shimon Peres' life with him making this movie. And he was somebody who had appeared in other projects of mine. And towards the end of the principal interviews that we did, one day he asked me, we were talking a lot about Israel, and he just said, "Why haven't you made Aliyah?" And I didn't have a good answer for that, but it was something that I really, really thought about. And finally, all the stars aligned.
Yeah.
And we could do it.
And now here you are. I mean, still early in, and we know that this country is so happy to have you. It's made a lot of news given, you've had such a tremendous career, obviously winning the Oscar for The Long Way Home, which many people have seen. Your film's still streaming, including the Shimon Peres one. But now you've set up a new production company here, so you're also busy working. Tell us about the projects that are in development. I guess start with the one related to October 7th.
Well, the one it's a post-10/7 film that's called The Road Home. And like the Long Way Home, which looked at how the survivors of the Shoah rebuilt their lives after the Holocaust, how do you start over after you've lived through the unimaginable? And so this intrigues me, and seeing how Israelis directly affected by 10/7 are coming back to life and not allowing that to define them forever that's what this film is about.
Wow. So a labor of love to be here. I know you just got back from doing, more filming in France as well as Germany. You also are putting the final touches on a very interesting story about a soldier from World War II that was in D-Day, taken, killed, and buried in a Nazi cemetery. And he's since been reburied in, of course, the famous American cemetery in France. Tell us why that is so compelling to be a part of.
The story caught my attention because it was the idea of this young man. He was in his late 20s, child of immigrants, drafted just after the attack on Pearl Harbor, ends up storming the beaches of Normandy. He's mortally wounded and captured by the Nazis, dies in their custody, and gets buried in a mass grave with Nazis when so much of his family was killed during the Shoah. And it took 80 years to finally identify his remains and properly bury him in Normandy. And it's really bringing his life to the screen so people could find out about him and why the story's so important, because he was part of a battle that really was one of the definitive battles of World War II between the invasion of Normandy and the Battle of the Bulge.
Really such an incredible story, and the fact that they were able to give him a proper burial, with others that, took part exactly like you said in that historic moment. Also, you have some other films you're going to be working on, another interesting one called Toto and Coco, about Coco Chanel. Who knew? I didn't know she was a Nazi sympathizer.
Yeah, I mean, this is a story about the relationship between these two women, Coco Chanel and Toto Koopman. Toto Koopman was a half black, half Dutch, high fashion model. She was one of Coco Chanel's favorite models in the late 30s. And when the Nazis marched in to France and Coco began to cavort with the Nazis, Toto became a spy for the British and worked with the French resistance and the Italian resistance. And it's really the story of the choices that people make. Sadly, today, Coco Chanel is this fashion icon, and nobody really knows that she was a Nazi sympathizer, and very few people know about what Toto did.
Wow. Right under her nose.
Right.
Which is a big risk. I mean, your whole career is relying on Coco Chanel, and to be able to take that kind of chance is very, very heroic. So one more question before we go I wanted to ask. Given that you had a several decade-long relationship with Shimon Peres, what would he have to say if he were still alive, knowing that you made the jump and that you're here?
I would think he'd be very happy because he wanted people coming here. And towards the end of our interviews, when he asked me about why haven't I made Aliyah, when I finally made Aliyah, when I arrived here 2 months ago, one of my first thoughts was, what would he think looking down?
Shimmy.
So I feel very fortunate that I've been able to do this. And I wake up every morning very happy and very honored to be here. And
just to show that there's a strong filmmaking capabilities here, you do not need to live in Tinseltown to do
you know what? There's great stories here. And really much of my work pivoted to here. So now I'm not on the sidelines anymore. I'm here.
Amazing. Richard Trank, thank you so much for coming in and for joining us here on this journey in Israel.
Thanks, Emily.
If you live in Israel, you know that getting married here is not as easy as I do. According to Jewish law, the Rabbanut has to approve everything, do background checking, even to prove that you have Jewish ancestry, and what's more, not allowing intermarriage or same-sex marriage. Well, now there is a halachic backdoor that is proving to get out of the intense bureaucracy. Joining us now by Zoom from Jerusalem is Rabbi Aaron Leibowitz, the founder of Chupot. And thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure.
Mazal tov on being able to pull this off. I mean, we know how difficult it could be. So explain clearly. You knew the frustration many people are meeting with this process. Affecting people. Many people not choosing to get married because of these restrictions. So why did you know it was time to take a stand to try to facilitate that?
Well, it's important to say that we've already been performing weddings outside of the Rabbanut for 7 years, and over 2,000 couples have gotten married through chuppot. What's happened now is we've leveraged a unique opportunity to perform civil marriages in Utah together with our Orthodox kosher chuppot. So for the first time in Israel, it's possible to get married according to the laws of Moses and Israel in an Orthodox fashion, and register with the Ministry of Interior, register in Israel as married with this entire package of a civil marriage in Utah, which means that this becomes relevant to many more couples who are looking to register as married, looking for their marriage to be recognized. They want tradition, but they don't want Rabbanut. Today, we can offer that in a way which is fully recognized.
So, with that said, also, you're partnering, with a woman in Utah certified to do all of this. How did you connect with her? And I know they also do the weddings. They do it by Zoom and make videos. It's very forward thinking.
So actually, our organization is also unique in that we have women ordained neshot halacha, women of halacha, who perform weddings by us. But this particular case is a woman who got married through our organization. And Rabbi Chuck Davidson, my colleague, performed the chuppah, performed the wedding. And when we learned that she lived in Utah, we jumped on the opportunity, and because we knew that weddings over Zoom in Utah had become popular, but it was still a significant amount of bureaucracy, and the wedding officiant, who again, I need to stress, the officiant in Utah it's a civil marriage. Mm-hmm. It's not a rabbinic figure. But now we have an Israeli, somebody who speaks Hebrew, somebody who understands the whole picture, who can walk the couple through everything that they need to do and actually wed them civilly in the state of Utah. And that marriage certificate from Utah is recognized by order of the Supreme Court of Israel, recognized in Misrad HaPnim.
And explain, in the long run, why it's so important. There are many different the big spectrum of observance, more secular, of course, and more ultra-religious. Why, do you think it is important, still sticking to the religious law, to be a little bit more modern and flexible as we are, more than 2,000 years, into our history here in this land?
Well, it's important to say, first of all, the Rabbanut HaRashit, the chief rabbinate of Israel, pretends or presumes to represent halakha and represent Torah, but really what they represent is the ultra-Orthodox, the Haredi community. It's a fundamentalist attitude towards halakha. And at the same time, most Israelis still prefer a traditional wedding. Mm-hmm. Now, there are secular weddings in Israel. There are organizations that offer secular weddings, and the conservative and reform movement offer weddings to people who are looking for something along those lines. But most Israelis tend to be traditional, even if they're not observant in their own life. The sense that they have, or maybe it's of other family members. Maybe it's because of assumptions that they make, or maybe it's because they really do have an ideological part of them, which is traditional when it comes to family, when it comes to a wedding, when it comes to life events.
Right.
So that's something that we offer and is in very high demand.
Well, it's true. It's a cultural thing. If you look in the United States, people are still, whether you're secular, reformed, whatever, you are sticking to, the customs of a Jewish wedding and a chuppah, and, that in itself is so important. I don't want to get into divorce, but then there's also the issue with divorce. How does that work? Here in Israel, a woman needs to get a get. The man has to agree to getting divorced. Does this apply to any of that? Let's hope there aren't more divorces, but it is also bureaucracy here in Israel.
Well, first of all, chuppot is the only Orthodox rabbinic organization in Israel that requires a halachic prenup to protect against get refusal. So the huge issue of the dependence of a woman on the man, and really the dependence of both spouses on the other to divorce under Jewish law, which causes horrific situations, which are actually much more damaging towards women in Israel, is something that we prevent as policy. And there are other rabbis and other rabbinic organizations in Israel that recommend it. But in chuppot, we will not perform a wedding without that protection. So that's our first line of protection. In addition, I will say that there are private courts of law that provide a get, that provide a divorce agreement. And one of the big motivators for many couples not to get married in the Rabbanut is to not be dependent on the Rabbanut in case of divorce. Now, I also want to make a note. Part of the complex side of a Utah wedding is people who get married in Utah and register with the state will still need to get divorced through the Rabbanut. And that is why the prenup that we require is crucial. That's why we're now developing our own divorce court to address the needs of those couples. And that's also why some of the couples that get married in Chupot choose not to do a Utah wedding and not to register and live as a common law couple, even though, according to halakha, they are man and wife.
All right. Thank you very much, Rabbi Aaron Leibowitz, the founder of Chupot.
Pleasure. Thank you.
A forward-thinking 18-year-old from California has come up with an app that reminds you to rap. Joining us from Calabasas is Sina Matian, the creator of Tefillin Timer. Hello, Anna. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I grew up, I'm a neighbor of yours from where I grew up, but living in Calabasas, home of the Kardashians. You didn't really grow up in a super religious household or neighborhood. So what was really the turning point for what you call a rebellious act to dive deeper into Judaism?
Yeah, so I got into politics probably last year, and I watched a lot of Ben Shapiro, and his ideas really got me into Judaism as a whole. And I started going to Chabad. My friend Ethan brought me there, and it was just a whole new experience. It was probably the best decision of my life to become closer to Hashem.
It's really incredible, and we're seeing, more of it. There used to be a division. You're either religious and doing tefillin, or you're not. But the fact is, tefillin is actually a spiritual component. So explain why you found that, and you found that to be, something to be a calling to bring in others to do the same.
So, you don't go to synagogue every day, but you wrap tefillin every day, and that's one of those processes that it's a little time consuming. And if you can, put yourself in one of those positions every day to spend like 10 minutes wrapping tefillin, then you've engaged yourself in the next level of Judaism in my eyes. Now, the thing is, a lot of my friends, their issue is that, they just forget, and it's hard for them to adapt to this learning curve of, putting on tefillin every day, learning the prayers. So that's why I built this app. Because I want to help everyone get involved.
So, given you're a software engineer and coding, a very smart guy, why the decision to do this? I mean, I'm sure there are so many other things you could do. Why is this something that is a purpose for you? And now here you are creating a great platform.
Yeah, I felt tefillin was the number one thing that, you can do to help yourself get closer to Hashem. But it was also what people were struggling at. If you tell people to go to, synagogue every Saturday, they're like, I can't drive, I can't walk. But, tefillin, that's pretty simple. You can just, take out your bag, wrap it, and it takes probably like 10 minutes. So if people, they say they forget all the time, right? Here's your solution.
So how does the app work?
So yeah, it's pretty simple. So you just download the app and you get notifications every day to wrap your tefillin, and it skips holidays and Saturdays, of course, when you're not supposed to, and it makes the prayers there available for everyone to learn as well.
And, also you're not even doing this, you're doing this really for the cause, for I guess, Tikkun Olam, if you want to call it this way, but it's not paid. There's no commercials. There's no things like this. I mean, this is really, what is your long-term goal?
Yeah, well, my long-term goal is to help as much people get closer to Hashem as possible. Like I said, I'm not doing this for money or any monetary personal gain. There's never going to be any ads, no sponsorships, no selling data, no purchases. I just want people to have a great, easy opportunity to get closer to Hashem. And that's why I'm here.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on doing something so noble. Sina Matian, the creator of Tefillin Timer.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. With millions of people in Israel trying to pick up the pieces emotionally, mentally, and physically, mental health resources are spread thin, especially for native English speakers. But here's where Get Help Israel comes in, providing English speakers with therapists and other forms of support. And hundreds attended the 5th annual Get Help Israel conference in Herzliya, including myself. Here's more in this report. The ripple effects of the trauma from the war in Gaza, the hostages, and on the Israeli public are still swelling.
We're hardwired to escape negative things that we feel are dangerous. One of the things with traumatic events is that even after the trauma has subsided, specific things that trigger us can feel as if we're in some kind of danger. We all have our vices, and a lot of times we're shamed by them.
Dr. Shaul Lev Ron was among the expert headliners at the 5th annual Get Help Israel conference.
Various levels of anxiety, dysregulation, difficulty sleeping, a family member who's still back and forth from Miluim. So the ripple effects of that are still going on.
This year, founder Tanya Prochko decided to focus on somatic healing, which honors the body as an integral part of the emotional well-being of Israeli society as it moves forward from the fog of 2 years of war.
Right, we're not talking about just hostages or survivors of October 7th. We're talking about pretty much every single person in the country.
GHI, also known as the Israel Association of Mental Health Professionals, with its 500 members, has been invaluable in empowering and supporting native English speakers living in Israel. And this beachfront conference also provided much-needed relief and tranquility for the clinicians themselves, who have been working tirelessly.
Well, having the angle of an experience of having made Aliyah and understanding the stresses that can generate for an individual and their families, in addition to the psychological issues that everybody deals with, it was a real benefit to be able to provide the therapy from a perspective of understanding, but having been there.
The Israeli motto has been Yehiya Beseder. Everything is okay, but that's not what we've been brought up with. We haven't lived a life. Most of the people that have come here are dealing with war.
The mental health crisis in Israel comes in all shapes and sizes. For IDF soldiers in particular, over 10,000 so far are being treated for PTSD and other mental health conditions. And the nonprofit arm, called the GHI Fund, provides private therapy for soldiers and reservists.
We pay for private therapy for lone soldiers, Sadir soldiers, and Miluimnikim without any bureaucracy. Anyone that has served since October 7th can apply for our program. They get approved within 24 to 48 hours, and they can start therapy immediately.
44% of the clients really came out of their PTSD.
For several decades, Dr. Danny Brahms' Israel Psychotrauma Center has been paving the way for treating different generations of veterans.
Most Israelis said, trauma, we don't see that here. 1988, first Intifada. In psychiatry, after trauma, you either have PTSD or nothing, which is, of course, an illusion.
Similarly, there are alternative tools that have been proven effective in helping people express and heal their deepest traumas. Methods like yoga, writing workshops.
And we're developing narratives about what has happened to us and who we are. And so it's been a tremendous opportunity to write with people, writing all different types of things to get it out.
And even a technique, playing with miniatures in the sand.
It's very much a nonverbal way of working through all kinds of things, including trauma. Many of our sand play therapists went into the hotels and worked with the children who were displaced from their homes, and they did this in a group setting.
Overall, it will take years or even decades to know the long-term mental, emotional, and physical effects on the millions of all ages living in Israel. But the work starts now in the present.
And whatever comes up, it's all valid. We've all been in fight or flight for so long. We're not trying to run from it. We're not trying to fix it. We're not trying to get rid of something that is supposed to be here. So with that, I don't know where our next conference is going to bring us, but we're going to take it one day at a time.
And that's all for this week's episode of Jewish World Weekly. We sure hope you enjoyed it. Of course, you can head over to our I-24 News YouTube channel, our website, and social media to catch up on this episode and any previous episodes and interviews. Thanks again for watching. I'm Emily Francis, and shalom from Tel Aviv.